Are you sitting in on this conversation? I'm just sitting quietly and make sure the heat is I can jump off.
Keep me moving till the morning light. Gonna ride all night, ride all night. Wheels keep spinning till the morning light. Gonna ride all night, ride all night. Keep me moving till the morning light. Wheels keep spinning to the morning light. Wheels keep spinning. Wheels keep spinning. Wheels keep spinning to the morning light. Wheels keep spinning. Wheels keep spinning. Wheels keep spinning to the morning light. Wheels keep spinning. Wheels keep spinning. Wheels keep spinning to the morning light.
Good morning, beautiful people. Welcome to the second hour of LoveBabz, LoveTalk. I'm Babz Rawls-Ivy. I am delighted this morning to have my friend, Ina Williams. Ina Williams is the Senior Vice President and Chief Nursing Officer at Yale New Haven Hospital. And let me tell you something. She is responsible for like a little over 6,000 nurses in the nursing profession and the nursing staff and the nursing operations. And so she does all that, the trauma, academic medical center. She has oversight, nurses and clinical staff with responsibility for practice, quality, workforce, nursing resources, patient experiences, and general operations. And let me tell you how I know she can do all this, because she's from Jamaica. And Jamaicans, if you know them, know they are quite capable people of doing a gazillion things all at once and being fabulous. So let me tell you a little bit about her. She began her career in Jamaica after graduating from the University Hospital of the West Indies. She migrated to the United States in 1991 and was employed as a staff nurse at Bronx Lebanon Hospital in New York. And in 1992, she joined the staff at Yale New Haven. And in 1992, as a staff nurse in the operating room, and quickly progressed through a number of leadership positions. And so here she is. It is so nice to see you. Yep.
Morning, my friend. How are you?
I am well. It's nice to see you.
I felt like this has been a long time coming. We've been threatening each other for years, haven't we?
No. I've been threatening you and chasing you. I've been stalking you for years to do this. You've just been eluding me. So finally, thank you, Dana, for making this happen this morning. So how are you?
Very good, by the way. Thank you very, very much. How are you?
I can't complain. This got me thinking about the pandemic. It's done a couple of things for us. It made us think about how important our loved ones are. It made us think about first responders. But it also brought into our consciousness the care and commitment of nurses. Like, we did not know how valuable nurses were until the pandemic hit, until we saw the exhaustion, and they're the ones that are doing all the, hands-on. I mean, doctors are, yes, important, but it is nurses that sort of, do the heavy lifting and the assisting of the healthcare. And I think people have forgotten how important and vital nurses are to the medical ecosystem, if you will. Talk a little bit about the nursing, the practice of nursing, and what should we know about nurses?
Oh, wow. Geez, and we only have 45 minutes, but I'll try to do the best I can. Well, one of the things about nurses, I think that what became very, very obvious, even though some people knew it, but maybe not everyone understood the critical responsibilities and role of nurses. And, nurses are always at the bedside. And I'm going to sort of expand on that because nurses don't just serve at the bedside. And I think that's probably one of the things that the pandemic sort of exposed, that we're not just workers in hospitals, but we really are present everywhere that individuals are present. So in terms of what happened over the last couple of years, nurses were out in the public health, okay? Making sure that testings are being done, making sure that people are getting vaccinations. There's stories of nurses who trudged through snow in Alaska with baskets, just to deliver vaccinations to individuals. Nurses who go find themselves in remote locations, taking the vaccine right here in our town, in New Haven. It was nurses who really carried a lot of that work, responsibility out into the nitty-gritty areas of the community. So the practice of nursing is very broad. We are scientists, we are practitioners, we're healers, we're public health nurses, we work in pharmaceutical companies, we work in supply chain companies. And so the knowledge that nurses bring to the healthcare field helps to really define how we deliver care in all the different locations and places that nurses. So we've got nurses in politics, right, that are making policy. We have nurses that lead in professional organizations that help to shape the practice of nursing. So, our span is broad and wide, and we have the ability to influence care in a lot of different ways.
I think you're absolutely right, and the way that you laid that out was just wonderful, because I don't think we think beyond what we see in medical facilities. I think, and so you've given us a broader way to look at what nursing is. Is there a nursing shortage, Ina?
It's not like what happens on Grey's Anatomy, just on that show, because sometimes they get it right, but not most times they don't get it right. But anyway.
That was one of my questions. I'm gonna come back to that. Is there a nursing shortage? Because I hear a lot about there is a nursing shortage, that not enough people are going into the nursing profession.
Right. So we've been in a nursing shortage for almost forever. Sometimes it's worse than other times. The biggest challenge we have in nursing is not the lack of people wanting to be nurses. It's the ability of individuals to get into nursing programs so we can graduate enough nurses to take care of patients. In Connecticut, and I might not get the number exactly right, but of the 10,000, approximately 10,000 individuals apply to nursing school every year. Only 3,000 get in.
Whoa!
Only 3,000 get in. And
why?
Qualified candidates, not just who apply, but there are at least 10,000 nurses in the state of Connecticut every year who have met the requirements and could get into the nursing programs. And on an average, only 3,000. One is the schools are not large enough. The biggest impact against that issue is the way that faculties are paid, right? So faculties are expected to have really doctoral degrees. And so the salaries and the earnings as faculty members is very different from working in the practice setting. And so you find a lot of nurses, sort of acquiesce to the practice setting because of that pay differential. But some of it is just the capacity of schools and the inability of schools. So there's a lot of work going on with lots of professional organization, the American Nurses Association. There's also a conglomerate of other nursing professional organizations like the American Organization of Nurse Leaders that are working together with Congress and the American Hospital Association to think about their role in helping to change that narrative. Because if we can change that narrative, We may not close the gap completely, but we can really impact the number of nurses being prepared for nursing school.
So is part of what you do, Ina, so who's in charge of recruiting nurses? Like, how does that happen? Do y'all do a search far and wide? And is the money good for nurses? Are nurses being paid well?
Well, I'm sure every nurse would like to be paid more. And I think that there are opportunities for us to continue to sort of expand on that and advance that some more. I think the pandemic has really sort of brought that to the forefront. And, our nurses are asking us to really think about, how we pay them more. We tend to think about, and maybe our model needs to change, but we think about compensation in a large package. So I'll give you some examples. At Yale Hospital, there's a starting salary, but we also add into that a tuition reimbursement. So if you want to go back to school, and so many of our nurses, Babz, we probably graduate almost 200 nurses every year that are going back to school for their doctorate, their master's degree, their bachelor's degree, or individuals in our organization like aides and technologists and some of our environmental staff that are actually going to school to become nurses. We literally graduate that many people every year. So we try to provide a menu of options for people because not everybody wants just money. Some people want to have a good benefits package, right? Healthcare. Some people want funding so that they can go back to school. We have an array of scholarship opportunities for individuals, for example, nurse practitioners or some of our ancillary staff that are going back to nursing school. So we try to build in a sort of menu package so that people can have access to. We do a salary review every year for our nursing staff. And I have to say that the market has shifted in the last year or two. And so we're right now at our hospital undergoing evaluation of where we are in the market and how we can make sure that we stay as competitive as possible.
Are you starting to notice more and more men going into nursing? My late uncle was a nurse, so I am a fan of male nurses. He came out of the military and went to nursing school and became a nurse and worked in the prison systems in South Carolina. That's where he did his practice. So are you seeing more and more men come into the field?
It seems like in our hospital, we're seeing more and more of them. It's funny, I tend to sometimes when I go on rounds and I run into 4 or 5 or 6 of them in a department, I take their full photograph and hashtag them outside and like men in nursing. Have been going up nationally. I think we're at about 9% of the nursing population. There's about 4 million nurses in the United States. And about 9% of those are men, and we've actually seen that gradually shifting over the last couple of years. So I think it's, it was such a gendered career, right? It's like if you're a nurse, you got to be a lady, you got to be a woman. But that is shifting because I think the opportunities for men are so very wide. We tend to find a lot of our men in nursing in emergency departments, operating rooms, working in the community, becoming nurse practitioners. I think the nurse practitioner world has expanded so much. Nurses have so much more broad scope of practice as nurse practitioners. And so we see a lot of our men and our female nurses also advancing into nurse practitioners and helping to become, part of the ecosystem of healthcare.
I mean, for many of us, our first introduction to nurses is through school. I remember in elementary school, the school nurse, if you had a stomach ache or a fever, that would be the first line of care before they called your mother. And I don't know, do they still have school nurses? Do they still exist?
Oh, yeah. And actually, Yale Hospital, we sponsor, we work with the New Haven Public Schools and I think Guilford and Brantford, and we actually fund nurse practitioners in our school. And so we have actually nurse practitioners embedded in our school system so that they can actually see patients and, prescribe and, do a lot of the work that physicians can do to support so they can do both roles as, sort of the practicing nurse, but also the nurse practitioner role as well. So that's a really important community commitment that we have. Again, they can care for folks with asthma, any kind of condition that they have, and probably keep a lot of those students in school rather than sort of staying home, not getting care quickly. They can easily refer them to our pediatric emergency room or to any of our services within the community if they really need those cares. And it's really fascinating to watch them work in the school system and care for students.
So when we, everybody's having these conversations about equity and inclusion, and I know the nursing profession is not is part of this conversation. How do you have conversations with recruiting or talking to about equity and inclusion, matters of race? Having nurses that reflect different populations and different ethnicities. What does that look like?
Well, it's a long road, right? It's probably not so much different from what's happening in the community, but there's real deep recognition that there's lots of work to do. And I'll give you a couple of contexts. So in the last couple of years, there have been a publication that has been put out, a report on the status of nursing. This past year, this report all focused completely on health equity and the role of nursing in advancing the healthcare system. And that report, which is a national report, which sort of looks at the landscape of nursing in the country, the impact, the historical perspectives of nursing, and has really put out an agenda to guide leaders and to guide nursing in, what we needed to do. And one of those parameters is really how do we increase the diversity of the workforce? Again, I'm going to go back to that statistic. Only 29%, no, it's not that high, 26% of the 4 million nurses in the United States are from a diverse background.
Wow. Right. So we got a long way to go.
A long way to go. And so that's part of, what do schools need to do in terms of, again, some of the barriers that nurses experience is just getting into the nursing program. So how do we prepare students to get into the nursing program, right? That science background, how do we make sure that they do that? And then when they get into the nursing programs, how do we make sure that they're successful and that they complete the nursing program? And then when they get into the workforce, how do we create an environment for that? One of the things that we've tried to do here at Yale Liver Hospital, and we still have quite a way to go, we're working very intentionally on this, is that we launched a nursing diversity and equity and inclusion task force. And so there's a group of nurses, a very diverse group of nurses, that are looking at evidence and looking at practice and looking at our environment and saying what it is that we need to do in order to advance the diversity of our workforce. In fact, next Monday, we have a nursing grand round focused on addressing racism in nursing. And so part of the work ahead is, one, how do we engage in the dialogue? One, how do we educate folks that this is really a problem? Because some people think it's not a big deal. They don't know what the fuss is all about. And so we have to help people to understand, but we also have to help them to understand how we got here and some of the historical structures that have been put in place in order to create the current environment. So, it's an active and dynamic piece of work that we have to do.
So Ina, do you think can you folks graduate from high school and go into a nursing program, or is there another step in that process?
Directly from high school into a nursing program. You still have to do all your, prerequisites, your liberal arts, like any other program, right? Your first year or first 2 years, you do your liberal arts, but most of the programs, you actually go right into a nursing program. You don't have to do your liberal arts and then apply to a nursing program. Many of the schools, you get right into the nursing programs at the very beginning.
And so, is it expensive to go to nursing school? Like, what is that like? Is it like going to a 4-year institution or a 2-year institution or community college? Like, is it cost prohibitive?
Not more expensive than it would for any other 4-year degree in any of those colleges. So it depends on, whether you go to a private school or you go to a community college. And we have a strong partnership with Gateway community college, for example. A lot of our staff go to Gateway and graduate for a 2-year program. A few years ago, we actually worked with Southern Connecticut University and created what we call a 2+2. So, because not everybody can go to a 4-year college, right? If you have a family, you're raising children, you may not be able to commit to 4 years, but we can get you to a nursing degree in 2 years, get you in a good earning capacity. Then we pitch in the tuition reimbursement for you and get you back into your bachelor's program, which is what a lot of our more mature adult nurses tend to do. But a lot of our brand new nurses do the same thing. So nursing school can range anywhere from $5,000 a year at community college to sometimes $11,000, $12,000, $13,000 a year, depending on whether you go to a private school or whatever it is. That's one of the reasons why we offer this tuition reimbursement for our employees, so that if they want to go back to school, we can help them with some of that money and with some of that funding.
So, break down the layers of nursing, because I hear CNA, I hear registered nurse, midwives, physician assistants, practical nurses. Like, there's a lot of nursing out there.
So, the CNA is not classified as a nurse, but classified as what they call an unlicensed assisted personnel, because that person is not licensed to independently practice, right? They work under the direction of a licensed practical or a registered nurse. And so that's probably the first entry into sort of the pathway to nursing. A lot of our aides, we call them patient care associates or clinical techs, they become nurses. I was just talking to a bunch of them this morning before I got online. Many of them are in nursing schools. And then you have the licensed practical nurses who, they're limited in their scope in terms of some of the practice within, whether they're in hospitals. Many of them, we find them working in our nursing homes and in our clinics because they're restricted in terms of certain practices. For example, narcotics, managing narcotics, making certain levels of assessment. And some of that is just based on educational preparation, right? Then you've got a registered nurse, and the registered nurse has a very, very broad scope. So you can be a registered nurse with a specialty in operating room, which was my background. I spent a lot of my time in operating rooms. Fascinating world. The human body is amazing.
Wow.
In the emergency department, I mean, every time I saw a chest open and a little heart that's just the size of my fist beating in there, you just realize how amazing the human body is. You've got nurses who are specialties in emergency department. You have nurses who may be specialties in intensive care unit. Early in my career, I worked as an intensive care nurse. And even within the intensive care nurse, you can be an intensive care nurse in medicine or in heart and vascular or in neurosciences. I mean, the list just goes on and on. You can be a registered nurse in caring for children and pediatric specialty. You can be a registered nurse and work in a outpatient setting or in a school. And then that sort of next level of nursing begins to take you into that nurse practitioner role. And so you have to be master's prepared or doctorally prepared. As a registered nurse, you can be master's prepared, bachelor's prepared, associate prepared, doctorally prepared. And those preparation gives you just opportunity for different roles. For example, in my role as a chief nursing officer, I had to be master's prepared and I had to be working on my doctorate, which I'll be finishing in the next couple of months.
Whoa.
So that's kind of how, it works. Then you have midwives, right? Who again are nurse practitioners, but are certified and specialty in the care of midwifery programs. You have nurse practitioners who specialize only in pediatrics, in behavioral health. And so, I mean, the list just goes on and on. And that's the beauty of nursing, right? So I've been a nurse for over 40 years, believe it or not. I know I don't look that way.
You don't.
Pediatric nursing, surgical nursing, intensive care nursing. I've done operating room nursing. I spent a lot of time in leadership and management. I've been a nurse educator, and now I serve as the Senior Vice President and Chief Nursing Officer at Yale New Hospital. So the world is our oyster. I think that's the beauty of nursing. And, it has opened up so many streams and opportunities, especially for women who were very restricted back in the days, right, to certain things. And you can find nurses just about everywhere.
I know you have to go, so I want to ask you, where do you see the future of nursing going? And what would you like to see the future of nursing be?
Wow. So I think that nurses are continuing to sort of recognize their impact in society. They've always done that. And, when I think about some of the historical figures and how they have transformed nursing, I go back to people like Florence Nightingale, who really taught us how to use evidence, right? This was long before I was born. But she continues to still be a guide for us. So I see nurses taking more and more position in policy, setting the future, the practice, not just waiting for the dialogue to be created, but creating the dialogue. And there's so many of those nurses now doing this. I'm actually going to leave you to go honor one of our nurses in New Haven, Miss Estelle Thorpe, who was a pioneer, was the first African-American head nurse at Yale New Hospital. I mean, just
wow.
Right. So here we are. We know somebody who just passed away, who was a pioneer in those spaces. So what do I want to see for nurses? I want to continue to see nurses using their voice, not staying in the background, and really shaping the future of practice. We have a place at the table. We belong at the table. We can create the tables. We don't have to wait for people to create the tables. And really, I think, continue to let the public know and understand what it is that we do. I don't think we've always done a very good job of doing that. And so it's kind of this mystical thing, like what do they do behind the walls, right? It's not just bedpans and urinals. It's really very, very complex, intellectual, highly skilled, well-prepared education that nurses do in order to care for some of the sickest among us, transplant patients. Some of the things we do are just simply incredible. And
I so appreciate this conversation. I want you to come back because I know people are listening. They're like blown away by the way that you have given us a picture of nursing beyond what we knew. Thank you so much. And good luck on this PhD. That means celebrations will be in order.
We will toast together. And again, Babz, thank you for your role in the community. And I know we've had some opportunity to work together on a particular committee during the COVID crisis. And your voice as a community representative of community was so invaluable. And we so appreciate your engagement. And I will be happy to come back. And I promise I won't wait as long as we did this.
Oh, no, I got you now, girl. You are back. And I so appreciate, and whatever I can do to help elevate whatever the work that you are doing, please feel free to consider this your home.
Absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to hold you to that.
Yes. And I'm sorry for the loss of the pioneering Nurse Thorpe, but I hold you and her family in my prayers.
Thank you. She was an amazing woman.
Oh, thank you. So take good care, and I will see you around soon.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you, Dana, for the coordination. All right, Harry, I'll see you tomorrow. And Harry, make your own coffee and bagels tomorrow.